And many of them told me, have a look at Israeli dairy farmers' performance. They are doing very good. So I'm glad to be here talking with you today. Together with me from CLAL, there is Alberto Lancellotti, who will give the second presentation from CLAL, and our founder, Angelo Rossi, and our colleague, Mirko. CLAL is an Italian-based company. We are a private company. We are 10 young people, mostly programmers. And then we have Angelo Rossi, our founder, that after a whole life as a manager in the dairy industry, wanted to share his knowledge and his passion for the figures, the numbers of the dairy sector. That's how CLAL started. We now give information about the dairy, agricultural, and the pork sectors, mainly through our websites, clal.it and teseo.clal.it. We make tables, charts with an entrepreneur perspective, something that is useful for operators of the dairy sector and also agri-food sector to make their decisions day by day and also for the coming future. And in particular, I must mention that Alberto is the one in CLAL who, with Mirko, is developing forecasts for the dairy sector. We do all of this thanks to our sponsors, who are farmers associations, farmer cooperatives, processing companies, so industry, and also retailers. And you can find a lot of information for free on our websites, thanks to them. And I hope that we will start also a cooperation with you about the agri-food sector data, and maybe starting with your logo in our website. And what about today? What will we talk about? Of course, the main focus is on the dairy market that Alberto will present. But now, more than ever before, we must talk about the costs of input for dairy farms, since prices for corn, soybean, the other agricultural products for animal feed increased sharply in the last year, and is weighing on the milk production, as Alberto will say. So I will be the first to present, and I will talk to you about the input costs for the farms. Now I will try to present, since I never tried here on Zoom, but I think I can do that. So here I see my presentation.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
You can share the screen. Okay.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes. Now,
so I will show you at full screen.
Yeah, so we see your screen.
Okay.
Yes, now it's the presentation.
Okay, I think now you see the whole presentation. So
yes.
Okay, so what we will see is we will analyze corn, wheat, and soybean, the world self-sufficiencies, the commodities market trends, so prices and stocks, and then other inputs and raw materials. let's start with self-sufficiency. What do we mean with self-sufficiency? What percentage of the domestic consumption does a country satisfy with its local production? That's the self-sufficiency. So, for instance, the US can satisfy 122% of its domestic consumption with local production. So they have a surplus of corn that they export. That's also for Brazil and Argentina, who are more than self-sufficient. But then you see the EU is self-sufficient for 88%, China 93%. And a similar map for soy. So here is even more large the difference between the exporting countries in blue and the red countries that are importing. So while US and Brazil are more than self-sufficient, we have the European Union who has a self-sufficiency of 16%, China only 14%, and Mexico 5%. So they need to import soybean and wheat. We see Russia 181%, EU 27, 129%, US 145%, while we have, for instance, China, who is 92% self-sufficient. So we have exporting and importing countries, and what we need to take into account for the whole presentation is that China, in August, starting from August 2018, was severely hit by African swine fever. So they needed to repopulate their swine herd. And that's why they increased their demand for agricultural products that are used for feeding swines. This increase in demand had a strong was a strong driver for what happened in the last years. Let's start with corn. So we can see the increase in corn prices in the main producing and exporting countries, who are the United States, in the darkest green, the lightest green, Brazil, the higher price, and Argentina, the light blue. For instance, if we compare to, January 2022 for US with January 2021, the increase was 21% for the corn price. So we see globally an increase in the corn prices. I don't know what happened there in Israel. Maybe you can tell us then after presentations. Globally, we had these increases. Then during the last part of 2021, we had prices slowing down a bit in Brazil and the US, but then they increased again. So they are still at high level. Why is that? Well, we mentioned the demand from China. We can see that starting from the season 2017-2018, the ending stocks for corn decreased every season until the season 2020-2021. So the ending stocks give us the feeling of the pressure on the prices. If you have low stocks, you have prices increasing. And that's what happened. I mean, in particular, US stocks decreased a lot. this substantial erosion was because of the demand for corn for feeding, but also because corn is the main raw material for producing bioethanol. And as you may know, the oil prices have increased, and so also bioethanol prices increased. That's why in the US they produce more bioethanol and use more corn for producing that bioethanol. What is expected from the USDA, the US Department of Agriculture, for the current season, 2021-2022, is a slight recovery for the stocks. So, because production should increase faster than consumption. But we still must keep an eye on bioethanol, and we have to take account that China slowed down its imports because they are also planning to produce more corn. They increased the harvested area, and they will start to produce GMO corn in the future. So a slight recovery in the next season, in the current season, could mean that prices could slow down a bit, but should stay at a high level. Let's have a look at wheat. We see the increase in prices also in wheat. Corn prices rise prompted an increase also in wheat prices, because wheat can be a substitute for corn in feed formulation. Production is now stable, but and should be stable in the current season, but we could have an increase in consumption. So in the end, it is expected that the 2021-2022 season will see again a decrease in stocks for wheat, and it will be stocks at a level lower than in the last 5 years. Moreover, we need to add that Russia added quota exports for wheat, and also tax on the export from Russia of wheat, because they are trying to limit the rise of Russian internal prices. This could put more pressure on the market. So prices will likely stay high in the coming months. What about soy? So we have we see also here the increase in soy started in the year 2020. Again, we have US, Brazil, and Argentina. Brazil, January 2022, increased the soybean price by 8.3% if compared to January 2021. You see it in the dark green line. These are the dollars per ton. What happened here with soy? Something similar. Something similar what happened to also to corn. We had China's strong demand that eroded the stocks in Brazil. These are the ending stocks in blue, Brazil, and in red, United States. You see that United States decreased its stocks a lot. Then in the last season, we had a slight recovery in the global stocks, thanks to Brazilian stocks who rose a bit. And what is expected for the next season? So a good production for the European Union that should be up about 10% if compared to the previous year, to the previous season, sorry. And a good production also in the US, but we see adverse climate condition in South America. They are recording a hot and dry climate because of La Nina, which is impacting there. And the expectation from USDA is final stocks for the current season that should be at the lowest level in 5 years. So we saw the increase in corn, wheat, and soybean prices, and what we could expect for the coming months. This is impacting production of milk because of the increased feed price for dairy farms. But also other input costs are impacting. For instance, fertilizers price. You can see here the rise in the fertilizers price starting the first half of 2020. And this increase was mainly due to the rise in the prices of natural gas, since it is the main raw material for nitrogen fertilizers. Therefore, we see an increase also in fertilizers price. Some fertilizer manufacturers stopped producing fertilizers because of the high cost of raw materials. Well, if we will see a lower usage of fertilizers, we could record a negative impact on the yields of agricultural production over the current season, 2021-2022. Energy costs. The cost of energy increased. Here is energy cost in the EU. And if we compare December 2021 to December 2020, we had an increase in energy cost, electric energy cost of 380%. That's a huge increase. This is impacting dairy farms, but also processing companies, dairy processing companies, cheese manufacturers, spray dryers, and so on. Also, transport costs more. For instance, if we take transports in container from Asia to Northern Europe, we see an increase of 88.3% January 2022 compared to the same to January 2021. You see here the most expensive routes and their increase in cost. This is impacting many inputs at farm and also technology used in farms and in the processing industry. And then we see the rise in oil price. January 2022 oil in Europe, Brent was up 47% if compared to January 2021. So we can. I will end my presentation with some other raw materials. We see year over year an increase in almost every raw material listed here. So aluminum, copper, metal and brass, plastic, paper, cotton, glass, and some of them are still recording increases if compared to previous month. We also need to take into account inflation for the prices of raw materials and inputs in the coming months. So these feed prices are dampening milk deliveries, for instance, in the EU and US, and other input costs we saw they increased, and they are impacting for all the dairy chain. And then Alberto will now present what's the impact on the dairy chain and on the dairy market.
Yes, thank you, Francesco, and thank you all again for the kind invitation. I'm trying to share my screen. I will share it in a few seconds. Okay. Share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see my screen in the presentation.
Yes.
Yes, we see it.
Just 1 second, because... Okay, now I think it's full screen.
No, not yet, Alberto. We can.
No.
Now it's good. Okay.
Okay,
No.
perfect. Because I have 2 screens and it was trying to duplicate the presentation. Okay, perfect. So thank you, Francesco, and we will continue the analysis with the dairy market with an overview of the current trends in the market at the international and European level. What we will see in this presentation, we will have a look at the supply side at the start of the presentation, looking at the production trends in the main milk producer around the world. Then we will analyze the demand side in terms of import and export flows. And at the end, we will see how this balance is influencing dairy price
I lost Alberto. Alberto, I can hear you no more.
on the left.
Alberto, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you. I think you should stop your webcam, maybe, because
Yes.
we lost what you said in the last slide.
Okay, let's try to do this.
Okay.
Okay. Can you still see my presentation?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's go back to this slide. So in this first slide, I would like to give you a picture on the current situation, or the current balance of the dairy market in terms of production and export. In the column on the left, we see the share of the main milk producer on the total global production. So we see the first global producer, Europe, with a 20% of share. Then we have United States with the 16%. One of the other highlighted area is Oceania. You see Oceania as only a small share in terms of global production, but it becomes very important if we look at the export share. We have to say that export is only 11% of the total global production, but it is the part of the product that moves the market prices, so it's very important. Here in the column on the right, we see still Europe at first place, but the second is Oceania with 28%, and the third are the United States. So it's important to notice how a country that has a small production, if we look at the comparison with the other countries, has a great share on the global export, because they produce they export almost all the product they produce. And this is very important to analyze the dairy market, also because we have to understand that in a case of a problem, let's say a climate problem, or also an environmental regulation in this country can change, can suddenly change the trend of the dairy price and the supply also at global level. So let's have a look to the trend of the production in the countries we saw in the previous slide. We can start with New Zealand and Oceania. The production in New Zealand increased slightly in the period January-November 2021 compared to the same period of the previous year. But in the last months, and I mean September, October, and November, production started to slow down significantly, recording decreases of more than also 3%, and in November, minus 1.5%. We also already have the data for December that shows an higher decrease, about minus 5%. So production is going down significantly. And this is quite important also because these months, the latest months of the year, are usually the seasonal peak in New Zealand milk production. So this decrease is also more significant. We can see also Australia with a reduction of 0.9% in the period January-November 2021, and with a minus 0.8% in November. So in Oceania, they have lower milk availability in the last months of 2021. At the end, in the last row of this table, we can see the situation in the United States. United States are interesting because they are one of the main producers, but also because they were the driver for the increase in the global milk production we recorded in early 2021. In fact, as you can see, they recorded a plus 1.5% of increase in January-November. But also this country is starting to slow down its milk production, probably due to the reason Francesco explained to you before, especially the higher feed cost for cows. So also United States has a lower milk availability at the moment. To conclude this slide, on the right we can see the historical trend for each country of the cow number and the yield per cow. For each chart we see in blue the cow number and in red the yields. For Oceania, we can see an interesting trend. For both countries, New Zealand and Australia, we see for New Zealand has slowed down in the last years in terms of cow number. As you can see, I use the pointer. You see here, the blue columns are quite stable after the increase of early 2000 years. And also Australia is recording a decrease. This is a trend that is going on the last 15 years, let's say. So here the production is driven, the higher production is mainly driven by the yields. In the United States, the situation is different because the dairy herd size is increasing in the last years along with the yields. Even if in 2021 we saw a different trend with a reduction of cow number due
I lost again.
to the higher the last of you can hear me?
I lost you, Alberto, a bit, just a few seconds.
Sorry?
You were talking about the reduction in cow numbers.
Okay, sorry. I was talking about the reduction in cow number in New Zealand and Australia because they are reducing the herd size or is stable in case of New Zealand, while the United States is increasing in their herd size along with the yields. So let's see the next producing country, the main producing country at global level, that is EU27. Here we have an overview of the main producing member states. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the first place we have Germany, and here we have an analysis, a comparison between 2020 and 2015. So we see the trend in a 5-year period. In this year, the dairy cow number in Germany decreased by 373,000 cows, while we had an important increase of milk deliveries. And this is mainly driven by the higher yields per cow, as you see in the third column. In France, the other main producer at European level, we see a decrease both in dairy cow numbers and also in milk deliveries. And then we have the Netherlands, where the situation is similar to what we see in Germany, with lower dairy herd and higher milk deliveries. The Netherlands, in the specific case, had problems in the last few years with phosphate and nitrogen reduction, so they are trying to reduce their cow herd size, and this will probably be a hot topic also in the coming months. And at last, we see Italy. Italy is quite interesting in this year, not only because our company is from Italy, but also because, as we will see in a few seconds, Italy has a different trend in production in 2021 compared to the other main producers. But for the period 2020-2015, we see that Italy increased both the dairy cows and had a strong increase in milk deliveries, about 1.5 million tons. That's quite important. Let's have a look to the last column to see the trend for 2021 of these countries. As you see, the main producers, Germany and France, are reducing significantly their production, minus 1.8% and minus 1.4%, and also the Netherlands with an even higher decrease, minus 2.8%. And Italy is interesting because, on the contrary, is recording an important growth, plus 3.1% of increase. Probably we will see a smoothing of this trend in maybe the first months of 2022, but that's still an important trend. And in the end, we have the summary of the EU situation. So in those 5 years, lower dairy cows, but higher milk deliveries, and limited milk availability in 2021 with a minus 0.3% of decrease. Okay, I see some small lines on the slide, but okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the demand in terms of import at global level. In this chart, we have the trend of the dairy import by geographical area. We see that at global level, imports are good because they are still increasing in 2021 after 2 seasons of increase. Here, the period is January-October for all the season, and we see plus 3.4% in this column. I try to this one, that is 2019. Plus 1.2% that is 2020, and 2% in 2021, with a positive trend, especially for Asia Southeast. And in this area, we include also China. As you can see here, we have the products that are recording the most interesting variations. So we have positive trends for milk powders, S&P, WP, for bulk and packed milk, also for cheese, and also for fat products like cream, butter, and other fats. Maybe the slide is a little bit covered now. I don't know what's happening with the red lines. Maybe someone is writing some notes on the slides.
Yeah, I can see some red lines on the slides. I don't know what is happening. Yaniv, can you do something about that?
I don't know from where it's coming. Maybe someone put a pointer and Faint lines.
Okay, but maybe if the slide is clear for you, we can continue. I can continue also with the red lines.
Yes, okay, continue.
Hoping that they will be stable. Okay, so to have a focus on Asia to Southeast, we also have a slide about the Chinese dairy import. China, of course, is very
Let me see you again.
we see the big increase in 2020.
Alberto, we lost you.
Alberto.
We lost you a few seconds.
Okay, I was talking about China. Now,
Yeah.
can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
we see the strong increase in Chinese import in 2021, more than 20% of increase, 21.3%. After 2 other seasons where we recorded a strong growth of about 10% of increase, both in 2019 and 2020. We see that the increase is for almost all the dairy products, except for infant milk formula. So let's talk also about the exports, and here we can see the dairy export of EU27. It's quite interesting because we see a slowdown in 2021 after 3 years of increase, a slowdown of minus 1.8%. Let's say the 2 main products exported by the EU have remained almost stable. I mean cheese, that is the core business of EU, and bulk and packed milk. As you can see, minus 0.2% or stable. But we had a reduction for milk powders, skim milk powder here, minus 3.9%, and also whole milk powder. This trend is mainly related to the lower milk availability Europe had in 2021. As I told you before, cheese is the main destination for milk in Europe. So when Europe has a lower milk availability, industries try to keep cheese production up, and so they reduce the production of other products, especially SMPs, milk powders. So this lower availability means also a low products available for export. Then we have also a focus for EU export to Israel. We see that in the last years, Europe had a strong increase with also a peak of plus 18.7% in 2020. Now we can see a reduction in 2021. Let's see the 4 main exported products from EU to Israel. We see the cheese is the main one because I think Europe is the main supplier of cheese in Israel. Then we have butter that recorded the stronger growth from 2020 to the stronger reduction, between 2020 and 2021. And then we have also WMP, so whole milk powder and infant milk formula. For cheese, we also have a focus on the right chart, the chart on the right, where we can see that even if the total export of EU to Israel is decreasing, cheese export is still going up of about 10% in January-November 2021. The main exported type of cheese is Gouda, and then we have other types with lower quantities like processed cheese and also Grana Padano and Parmigiano Reggiano that are 2 of Italian DOP cheeses, the 2 main, let's say. Then we can go on looking to how this situation is influencing prices in the current period. Here we have an overview of butter prices in the main marketplaces around the world. So we have Europe, so Germany as reference in green, and then we have US in red and Oceania in blue. We see that all these prices are recording a strong growth since early 2021, and now they are near the historical maximum level. This, of course, is mainly related, as I told you before, to the low milk availability of 2021. That also leads to lower milk fat availability and so an increase in, for example, butter prices. But we can see the same situation also for SMP, so skim milk powder. Lower milk availability in 2021 and a strong price increase. And now we are near the very high levels of 2013 and 2014. After the lowest peak of 2018. Now the price recovered and is quite high at the moment. Okay, now we have an interesting slide, in my opinion, because it's about a tool that we use to analyze the milk price trend and the possible price of the coming months. This is a payout. With payout, we mean the theoretical price of milk, in this case intended for the production of butter and SMP. To calculate this price, we use the current prices of butter and SMP, in this case at European level, as you can see in the title of the slide. And also we add some industrial costs that we retrieved with the survey between the industries we are in touch with. So this calculation leads to a very
We lost Alberto a bit. Okay.
high the rest story in 2013.
Sorry, Alberto. We lost you. You were talking. You were saying this calculation gives a big what? I don't know what.
You were able to listen the explanation of the payout?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I was just saying that the current level of the payout is very high compared to the recent history. Also compared, for example, to the peak of 2017, where butter price was very high at global level, just because in that period, the SMP price was very low, while at the moment we have very high prices, very strong prices, both for SMP and butter. So the current level of this theoretical price is very high. We can see the same tool also for the United States. In this case, we don't have SMP, but we have NDM, non-fat dry milk, but the calculation is the same with different industrial costs. And also in this case, we can see the strong growth since early 2021. And now this theoretical price is near the maximum level of the last 15 years. Here you can see the current situation. So let's see the current picture of milk prices at global level. We have a table on the left of the chart with the prices in dollars for some of the main producers around the world. We can see the level of the first three countries, so US, New Zealand, and EU. All these three countries are have quite high price, and they are near the 5-year high. And you can see this also in the chart on the right, where the prices started to grow since the second half of 2020, in particular for Europe, but also for United States. And now the prices are in a quite high level, considering the recent history. So what's the point of this global situation? The situation is for a low milk availability in the main global suppliers, and so prices are going up, both by product prices and so also milk prices around the world. For us, this is a situation that probably will continue also in the first half of 2021 due to the low supply. And we will see how it develops in the second half of 2022. Also, considering that we have to see what will be the trend for both industrial cost and feed cost. But at least for the first part of 2022, we think that the prices will stay in a high range for these products and also for milk. Thank you. That's what we wanted to present to you today about the dairy market. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. We'll open the session for a question. Once you can stop sharing. Oh. Someone want to ask? I will ask you, Alberto. I want to ask about the price of the milk. We remember when in Europe they canceled all the quota system and the milk price dropped very strongly. And now, like you said, it's coming up. What do you think it will look like in the future on the milk price?
As I told you before, probably the price will stay high also in the first part of 2022. For the next future, we will have to see how milk production will develop in the main European producers, because as we saw before, the Netherlands have environmental issues. This is starting also to involve Germany in some way, and let's say some countries of EU don't have big expectation in terms of milk production in the coming year. So we have to see how this will develop, let's say in 2023 and 2024. But for the short term, we think that the prices of milk, so 6 months, for example, will stay high.
Stay high. Okay.
This could mean also maybe this could mean even a slight reduction, but I'm talking about the general level of the price, so high price.
Yes, okay, Liron. Yes, Liron.
Yes, thank you for the nice presentation. I want to ask if you have any idea of figures or information about the cost of production in relation to the milk price in Europe and also in other area in the world.
The cost of production?
Cost of production versus the milk price, yes.
Sorry,
well,
but
Alberto,
I missed the question due to the connection. Maybe
yeah, Alberto, Mr. Liron was asking if we have cost of production compared with milk price in some places in the world. What I can say is that we do have this kind of information for the US. So the cost of production, and in particular the feeding cost. And we have also we studied the cost of feeding in Italy, and we will develop something new about the Europe feeding cost in the coming months. But still, we are more focused on the performance in dairy farms than in specific costs, also because the farms are so different one to the another. At least I can tell this for Europe. So there is not, in my opinion, one way to assess the cost of all the farms, because they can be really different one to the another. Anyway, on teseo.clal.it we do have the cost of production for United States farmers, and the feeding cost for Italy.
Yeah, let's say I'm just sharing my screen. I hope you can see.
Yep.
This is the page that Francesco was talking about the US milk income and costs. We have these data from the US Department of Agriculture. Here, for example, we have a chart of the income divided from the income from livestock, income from milk sales, and then we have other income that is just a small part. And here we have the costs for US dairy farmers, so operating costs excluding feed, allocated overhead and feed costs. And also in the last chart here you can see the complete picture looking at the single specification for each cost. So feed costs, for example, are divided between grazed feed, homegrown harvested feed and purchased feed, while we can see also the single lines for, let's say, allocated overhead or operating costs also. So yeah, we have this type of analysis for the US, but as Francesco said, we usually to analyze the market use also the trend with feed cost, and we also have this data for other countries other than US.
And we are.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And we are working, in particular Esther, who could not be here today because she's sick. We are working on assessing the structure of the European dairy farms, and now and in the coming future, also taking into account new European policies that could shape a different future for farms. I see there is one question on the chat, but I can't understand it because I only know one character in Hebrew.
Yeah, I saw it. I will translate you the question here from the chat. It's Amir, a manager of a big dairy farm in the Golan Heights in the north of Israel. He asked, what you think will be the demand for milk fat in the coming years, and what will be also the price for it?
The demand of milk fat is quite interesting at the moment because, as we saw in the presentation, is growing also in countries from Southeast Asia, where imports is growing stronger. So probably will still develop also in the coming year. A thing that usually our founder always says when talk about fats, like for example products like butter and cream, is that the countries, while they grew their purchasing power, their economic welfare, also they start to import more products like cream and butter instead of products like, for example, milk powders. So probably this in Southeast Asia also.
Sorry, Alberto, we lost you. We lost you for a few seconds.
Okay, I was just completing the picture, saying that probably this is a trend that will continue to increase in Southeast Asia, mainly China. For the price, I think the situation is the same that we saw before for other products. I think at the moment price is still up. Probably butter reached the peak at the moment, but is very uncertain also because butter and other fats showed that at global level they can have very big variation in just a few weeks, as we saw in 2017. But probably they will remain high, let's say this level also for the coming months. And then we will have to see what the future holds for the next years. But for the next months, I think high prices also for butter and cream, let's say, or the fat products.
Let's see, we have here something more in the chat. Let's see.
Oh, I see a question.
See the question. Yes.
About support and subsidies. As Francesco said before, we have one of our colleagues, Esther Venturelli, that is particularly inside this this regulation. I don't know, Francesco, if you want to add something, or we can give you the link of the page where we talked about this topic. We have.
Yeah, well, Alberto, unfortunately, I think that we have a couple of videos where we speak about the support subsidies, direct and indirect payment, but they are in Italian.
Okay, sorry. I forgot.
Yaniv, we should talk about this in another meeting, maybe together with Esther, so we can tell you something more about it.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Liron Tamir, for the question.
Ronnie, you want to ask?
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for your presentation. I want to ask about the Common Agricultural Policy as well. I don't know if it's for this meeting or for the next one, but I was wondering whether or not it helps to mitigate the effect of the reducing milk deliveries that you show in one of your slides. In Germany, in France, in the Netherlands.
Well, the policies, I don't think the policies are taking into account these trends, because these trends are happening in the last year, and I don't think they took this into account so much. It's my personal point of view, and we will talk about it again, I hope, together with you. They put more stronger limits from an environmental point of view. So you can have subsidies if you are okay with more with stronger limits from environmental point of view. They are boosting organic production. Not talking only about dairy as a whole agricultural production. They want to have a big increase in the land devoted to organic production. So that's what we see. I don't think there is anything specific about this decrease of. We should have a look at the single country's policies if you want to see a faster responses to what is happening. And if we look at the Netherlands or to Germany politics, in Germany they are trying to reduce number of cows because of environmental problems, and in the Netherlands they did a few years ago, and for phosphates, and now they are doing it again for nitrogen problems in the soil. So I think the policies, as far as we can see, the policies are more for stabilizing this decrease. I mean, the current production could stay the same for the coming years, because it's something that it could become structural, definitive.
Yes, in this regard, I want to ask you to talk about the reduction in Germany and Netherlands, and you said also because of the environmental reasons. We also have a lot of problems here with the environment, but we saw that in the opposite in Italy, the number of cows is rising and not decreasing. Why is the situation difference?
This is sorry, Francesco.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Just maybe you can. In Italy is a quite interesting situation also because this trend in production is changing the balance of Italy. Let's say Italy is an importer of milk, looking at the historical situation. But now looking at the production, import, export, if we make balances, Francesco showed you before, for example, for corn and soybean, if we make it for milk, we see that Italy is becoming almost self-sufficient in terms of milk production. So this is quite important because we are also starting to export, for example, milk in Germany. And that's quite an important situation. At the moment, for example, let's say farm costs have not impacted the production for the moment. I mean the last available months in the data, so let's say November. But from what we see and know, probably they will start to have an effect and impact in early 2022. Sorry, Francesco, if you want to add.
No, thank you, Alberto. You did great on that. And what I would like to mention is only that, as you may know, the European agricultural policies are then applied with some freedom from the states, from the singular countries. I mean that each country has a bit of freedom in embracing these regulations, spending the money on something or on another part of the regulation, because each country has a specific conditions. So what about Italy? The new cap reform has a stronger requests on the environmental side. So we in the future it could become it could have a weight also on Italian production. It could happen. It could happen in the future that it has an higher impact on the Italian production. It also depends on how Italian country will apply the cap reform.
I think also it would be important to see what happens looking at if there is something specific for some region, because we have also to consider that milk production in Italy is very concentrated in a few regions, let's say mainly in Lombardy, for example. So we have also to see the situation at local level.
Okay, we have another question from the chat. Does the closing of small dairy farms, family dairy farms in Europe is still continue like it was some years ago after the cancellation of the quota system?
Sorry, can you repeat? Because
yes, does the family dairy farm, small dairy farm, continue to close, okay, in Europe? In what percentage?
I can check 1 second.
What is happening indeed is let's say an increase in farm dimensions, average farm dimensions. So big farms, small farms are more likely to close than big farms still. I don't have in mind a specific figure, because as I told you, is a work in progress we have with Esther. What this is happening, and a part of the cows that are coming from small companies that close are then going to bigger farms. So the closing of a company doesn't mean necessarily the loss of the cows and of the milk production. And but these trends also depend on the country, because European countries are different, and they have also different way of feeding. For instance, if you compare Italy to France and Germany, it's different. I don't know what's like there in Israel. Here in Italy, there is less grazing. There is more farmers are giving feed to the cows into the barns, while in they have more space in Germany and France for grazing. And these are all things that are changing these kind of trends.
Okay, there are more questions. Liron, you want to ask, or your hand is still from before?
לא, אני קיבלתי תשובות. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, then if there are no more questions, we will thank you that you join us tonight, and hope to continue discussion with you. Okay.
Okay, so
Thank you.
So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Yaniv, for
thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you.
for translating the
Good
slides,
evening.
and for this meeting. We also do meetings with farmers, processors, and retailers. And well, I bring you the greetings from our president Simone and our founder Angelo, and to the Cloud team. I hope we will see you again soon.
לא שמענו,
Thank you. Bye.
ביי.
תודה רבה.
אבל זה יהיה, אני מבינה פה גם אתמול,
בשקט.